Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about. Okay, so today we're going dap on something that's really shifted. It used to be maybe just a dodgy email in your inbox.
Right, the classic phishing attempt. Annoying, but sort of contained.
Exactly. But the research we've looked at shows online fraud is now, well, it's a massive global security issue. We're talking a $1 trillion industry linked to human trafficking, organized crime. It's huge.
That's really the key thing to grasp, the industrial scale. It's not just lone hackers anymore. Think organized syndicates post-pandemic, realizing digital scams are, frankly, lower risk and higher reward.
Easier than robbing a bank, I guess.
Much easier. And it thrives on, well, a combination of digital unawareness and, honestly, fear. They engineer fear.
So our mission today is to unpack this. Look at the shocking numbers, how these operations actually work on the ground, especially that horrifying human trafficking angle, and importantly, what's actually working in terms of fighting back.
Yeah, and we have to start with the scale, because the figures are, well, they're staggering. Globally, the annual economic hit is now over $1 trillion.
Whoa, hang on. $1 trillion.
Every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
You have to pause on that. That's like the entire economy of a pretty significant country.
It is. Think mid to large country GDP. And that money is being drained away from, healthcare infrastructure, real things.
So if the damage is that huge, that nation level, why isn't law enforcement globally shutting this down more effectively?
That's the crux of it. It's incredibly difficult. You've got jurisdictional problems, crimes cross borders constantly, plus really sophisticated money laundering.
Making the money disappear.
Exactly. So you end up with this crazy situation where maybe 2 billion people worldwide have been victims.
2 billion.
Yep. But the arrest rate for the people running these scams, it's vanishingly small, like 0.05%.
0.05%. That's basically nothing. It means it's almost risk-free for these criminal groups.
Essentially, yes.
Can you give us some examples? Like, how fast is this growing in places we might think are relatively safe?
Sure. Look at the U.S. reported losses hit $16.6 billion in 2024. That's up 33% in just 1 year.
A third higher in 1 year. Wow.
But maybe even more telling is somewhere like Sweden. Losses there reached up to $2.75 billion last year. And get this, about 1 in every 8 Swedes has been victimized.
1 in 8. That just shows how widespread it is. It's not some niche thing affecting a few unlucky people.
Not at all. It's everywhere.
And all this stolen money, this massive wealth transfer, it's flowing somewhere. It's tied to fiscal places, right? These industrial-scale scam compounds.
That's right. The main hubs, the real centers of operation, are concentrated in Southeast Asia. We're talking Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos primarily.
And the numbers there are just as startling.
Estimates put it at around 300,000 operators, many of them trafficked victims themselves, working in these compounds.
300,000 people forced into this.
And collectively, they're stealing something like $39 billion a year from these locations alone. That's maybe 60% of the global total, just from that region.
The research pointed to China cracking down domestically, right? And that just pushed these criminal outfits over the borders.
That's a big part of the story, yeah. They moved into neighboring countries with maybe less regulation or areas already facing conflict or instability, easier places to operate under the radar or with local protection.
And these places, these compounds,
yeah,
they're not just office buildings.
Oh, absolutely not. Think fortified prisons masquerading as, business parks or investment zones. The case of KK Park in Mayawati, Myanmar is, well, it's chilling.
KK Park. That was the one built pretending to be an investment project, right? Near the Thai border. Yeah, Thai New City, they called it.
That's the one. And the security. It tells you everything. These syndicates, often Chinese-led, working with local militias for protection. They built it with a 4-meter-high electrified fence.
Electrified.
Yeah. And armed checkpoints. It was designed purely for containment. At its peak, maybe 20,000 people were held inside people they called employees.
And the conditions inside.
Yeah.
Stories are horrific. This isn't white-collar crime anymore.
Not even close. Inside KK Park, the reports talk about secret detention rooms, routine beatings, water torture, all to force people to meet their scam quotas.
Just brutal enforcement.
And the most horrifying part, really, was evidence of an illegal organ trafficking channel.
Organ trafficking, connected to the scam compound.
Yes. For victims who couldn't meet targets or tried to resist or were just considered disposable. Organs harvested. People described it as hell on earth.
That completely changes the conversation.
Yeah.
You can't separate the online theft from this systematic brutality. It is modern slavery.
It absolutely is. And it's not isolated. Look at Cambodia, particularly Sihanoukville. You had casinos, big hotels being converted into these compounds, barbed wire, guards.
Protected locally.
Often, yeah. Reports suggest corruption enables it. This whole shadow industry is estimated at over $12.5 billion a year in Cambodia. That's nearly half the country's official GDP.
Half the GDP. Incredible. And then Laos has a slightly different setup, right? The Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone.
Right. The SEZ structure is key there. An SEZ special economic zone basically gets special rules. National laws might be relaxed to encourage investment.
So less oversight.
Much less.
Yeah.
In the Golden Triangle SEZ, you have this autonomy, plus they use the Chinese yuan, and it's policed by its own private armed force. It creates the perfect environment for these transnational criminal groups to operate almost untouchably. It basically turned a former drug hub into a digital fraud hub.
Okay, so we have these fortified locations. But how do they get the people, these hundreds of thousands of operators? You said many are victims themselves. How are they lured in?
It usually starts with a job offer that sounds amazing. Too good to be true, really.
The classic lure.
Exactly. Promises of high salaries overseas, thousands a month, maybe free room and board, often targeting young people looking for a better life.
And once they arrive?
It's instant. Passports taken, confined physically, all communication monitored or cut off. They're trapped from day one.
And then forced to run the scams. Let's break down the main types. You mentioned the fastest growing is pig butchering.
Yeah, shazu pan in Chinese. It's graphic, but it describes the process. The scammer builds a relationship, builds trust over weeks or months.
Playing the long game.
Totally. They might pose as a financial guru or just a very successful, friendly online contact, maybe even feign romantic interest. They build a deep psychological connection.
So it feels real.
Completely. Then they introduce a fake investment platform, sophisticated looking, maybe crypto. They let the victim make a small amount of money initially, small profits.
Build confidence. Prove it works.
Precisely. Get the victim psychologically bought in. And then comes the butchering part, urging them to invest everything. Life savings, take out loans, one huge deposit.
And
the platform vanishes, the friend ghosts them, everything's gone. It causes the biggest financial losses, by far.
devastating. Okay, what's the second type? Romance scams. Different angle.
Different emotional hook, exploits loneliness rather than greed. Often targets maybe middle-aged or older people looking for companionship online.
Building trust again, but romantically.
Yes, often over many months,
Yeah.
building a really intense online relationship. Then suddenly there's a crisis, a fake medical emergency, a legal problem, maybe a can't-miss investment they need help with.
Something requiring money urgently.
Exactly. And the victim feels obligated to help this person they believe they're in a deep relationship with.
And the third main type? Impersonation.
This one's about fear and urgency, pure panic play.
How does that work?
The scammer calls or contacts you pretending to be someone official. Police, tax office, maybe even immigration or a federal agency.
High-pressure tactic.
Immediately. Threats of arrest, legal action, deportation. Something terrible is about to happen unless you act now. They demand you transfer money immediately to a so-called secure government account to fix the problem.
Trying to bypass rational thought?
Completely. Make you panic. Stop thinking clearly. If fear takes over, the scam works.
And back inside the compounds, the people forced to make these calls, run these chats, they're under immense pressure themselves. We talked about the physical violence, but how else are they controlled? Psychologically.
It's a really insidious system. Fear of violence is constant, yes. But the real trap is often debt bondage.
Debt bondage, how does that work?
They impose massive fake fees, recruitment costs, training fees, penalties for not meeting targets, charges for food and lodging, often tens of thousands of dollars.
A debt they can never possibly repay.
Exactly. So they're told the only way to work off this impossible debt is to keep scamming. They're trapped financially as well as physically.
Forced to commit crimes to pay off a fictional debt.
Right. And then there's the final psychological twist. Brainwashing. They're told, look, you've scammed people now, you're part of this, you're an accomplice, no one will help you if you try to leave.
Undermining any hope of escape or seeking help.
It creates this awful cycle of victimhood and forced criminality.
It sounds almost impossible to break out of. Yet the research does show some successful crackdowns, dismantling some of these operations. What worked? What are the key lessons there?
The big takeaway is that success always requires multiple approaches working together, and crucially, cross-border cooperation and political will.
Can you give an example?
Look at the operations along the Myanmar northern border in 2023. What made that work was a combination of local armed groups actually cracking down on the ground and explicit law enforcement cooperation from the Chinese government across the border.
So pressure from both sides.
You need both. Otherwise, the syndicates just pack up and move a few miles across the border where the pressure isn't happening.
Okay, so regional action is vital. What about Cambodia? There were some big raids there in 2022, 2023. What drove that?
That seemed to be driven more by international factors. Intense media scrutiny, journalists really exposing what was happening, and huge pressure from civil society groups and other countries.
So shining a spotlight, forced action.
It appears so. When the world started watching closely, documenting the suffering, local authorities were pressured into raiding compounds. They rescued over 1,000 victims in some cases. It shows that global visibility is a powerful tool.
And you mentioned the Philippines had a specific approach too.
Yes, a really important shift in framing. In their 2023 operations, they defined the crime primarily as transnational human trafficking, not just online fraud.
Why was that distinction so important?
Because it triggered a different response. It wasn't just a police matter anymore. It brought in multiple agencies, immigration, labor departments, social welfare, allowing them to focus on the victims.
A victim-first approach.
Exactly. It meant they could offer shelter, repatriation, treat the rescued people as trafficking survivors needing humanitarian aid, not just as witnesses or potential criminals themselves.
That makes a huge difference, I imagine, in actually saving people and helping them recover. What does victim-first look like in practice?
It means immediate access to psychological support, trauma counseling. It means ensuring they aren't prosecuted back home just for being forced to scam. Setting up safe houses, providing support for them to reintegrate, recognizing the hell they've been through and the debt traps they might still be under.
So if we pull all these successful strategies together, what's the recipe for tackling this globally? What are the must-haves?
Okay, I'd say 3 key things emerge. First, drastically improve international intelligence sharing. Financial intelligence units, law enforcement, they need to talk to each other much more effectively.
Break down those silos.
Absolutely. Second, go after the money. Aggressively target the money laundering networks that let these syndicates actually profit from the stolen funds. Cut off the financial pipeline.
Starve the beast.
Right. And third, maintain that humanitarian focus. Adopt that victim-first approach consistently, supported by ongoing media attention and political pressure to keep it a priority.
This brings us back to the individual listener. Hearing all this, it's overwhelming, but we don't want people to feel helpless. What are the practical things people can do to avoid becoming one of those 2 billion victims?
Okay, crucial advice here. First, regarding jobs. Be extremely wary of any overseas job offer that sounds too good to be true. High pay, easy work, especially if unsolicited. Do your research.
And the absolute golden rule.
Never, ever give your passport or ID to a potential employer or broker when traveling for work. Keep control of your documents. That's often the first step in trapping someone.
Okay, what about online? Digital safety, spotting scams in progress. What are the red flags?
Be suspicious of any new online contact, whether they seem like a friend or romantic interest, who starts steering conversations towards money, investments, crypto platforms relatively quickly. That's a classic pig butchering setup.
And the impersonation scams.
Remember, no legitimate government agency, no police force, no tax authority will ever call you demanding an immediate bank transfer over the phone to avoid arrest or solve a legal issue. They just don't operate that way.
So if you get a call like that,
hang up immediately. If you're worried, find the official number for that agency independently. Don't use any number the caller gave you and call them directly to verify.
The common thread seems to be pressure. They create urgency.
That's their number one tool, haste. They want you to act before you think. So if you feel pressured to make a quick financial decision online or on the phone, the safest thing is always to stop, step back, log out, hang up, give yourself time to think and verify.
And basic digital hygiene still matters.
Absolutely. Strong, unique passwords for different accounts. Enable 2-factor authentication, 2FA, wherever you can. It adds a crucial layer of security.
This has been, a sobering look at this. The sources we looked at called this an invisible global war, weaponizing hope and fear.
And that framing feels right, doesn't it? When you factor in the torture, the debt bondage, the organ harvesting, this isn't just about stolen money anymore.
It's far beyond simple fraud.
It's systematic exploitation.
Yeah.
It's modern slavery operating on an industrial scale through digital means. Recognizing that depth, that brutality, and staying vigilant against those initial lures. That's really our best defense right now.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification bell. See you guys.